All right, hey, welcome to Talk About Paint Club. I'm Rick Strohmeyer, and I'm just a skinny dude with a funny last name. All right, so let's see. I'm still sharing links on the internet. Please give me a moment. All right, let's see. Wow, that was faster than I expected. Okay, yeah, just bear with me for a second. Get two more groups to be shared with. Yeah. And oh, there you go. And all right. Seriously? Paste. Okay. Cutting and pasting should not be that hard. All right. Okay. So I'm flying solo tonight. It's not a very common thing to happen on the show, but when it does, we do. So yeah. All right. Today will be a lot of. Well, this will be a live painting night as well. So I've got stuff all over the place to paint, talk about, discuss. Had to set this to record. Actually, some of you guys get to see how some of the sausage is made in this in my production area. So, welcome to the camera for YouTube for my other channel. This is not the camera. Clearly, it's not the camera for Talk About Paint Club. But yeah, I have a light up here that is a light that also has a fancy camera mount on it, so I can do time lapse of everything, just document everything. Excuse me. Cool. And there we go. All right. So let's see what we got today. All right. So I've got the camera to document up there. That's the phone. It is just time lapse, and it is just gonna go. Yep, it's on. So hopefully I have my lighting settings correct, because I've been batting 500 on having things actually be filmed correctly. So like I've been getting the black line distortion, the horizontal black bars, and I know it's because of the light frequency. And I have my overhead light just turned off, and I believe that is what causes it. Like the bulbs are old enough, or the lights are old enough there to where that's an issue. So yeah, that being said, oops. Sorry guys, I'm trying to figure out a proper setting so that when I start painting, I don't have to be like up here holding it, being like, here, look at this, and I don't have the camera just, motherfucker. Oops. All right. All right, cool. Yeah, that's a defect. All right. It's a defect, but we'll save it. All right, so I got a bunch of eyedroppers. So like way back when on the show, I had asked, or I was complaining to Nicole about bottles, and she asked, "What is my preferred bottle?" I'm like, "I don't have one for paint containers because I think pretty much they're all awful." And um, well, so I'm trying. I'm gonna put some paints in dropper bottles and see if I like that. Yeah, because one of the newer things that I've been doing is like making my own paint, and not from scratch, but taking other people's products and formulating it to be something that I is more favorable to the way I like to paint. And one of the things that I've been doing is to use Liquitex's acrylic ink as my pigment base, and then adding a different medium or binder to it. And that seems to work out well. And I'm going to go grab some inks over here. Try some wood tonight. I had that. Oh. All right. So anyway, yeah, sometime tonight we'll be making, or I will be making some very viscous paints to go in various places, and yeah. It sounds weird. All right, so I'm going to be making some highly pigmented paints that have a more viscous flow to them, so they travel over surfaces more better. And let's see, the reasons I'm wanting to mix some of my own paints tonight or this weekend is because I want something that's more transparent, it flows better, and cheaper than buying somebody else's product. So like Liquitex is pretty much my go-to for pigmented, for heavy pigmented inks. Yes, I like their paints too, but they're like they don't make so. Like the way I paint, I like to have very transparent paints, and they're pretty much what would be considered glazes, which in college we were using like matte medium and water just to make glazes very transparent to be put on a two-dimensional surface. I'm looking over there at my one portrait that is pretty much the epitome of, or the apotheosis of Phil's teaching. Anyway, but yeah, so I've decided that I would make some glazes just ready to go, and not as transparent as I was raised on, but pretty heavy. And the only fear here is that the bottles are glass, and I've already since using acrylics in my the acrylic inks in my airbrush in the past 4 or 5 years, I've only dropped and broken one of them. So an $8 mistake. So yeah, I'm now pretty conscientious of where I put the bottles when I'm done with them. So yeah, and Liquitex's inks already come in a bottle, in a dropper bottle. So what we'll be doing later is to mix up a combination of inks and medium to get some bottles going for test batching tomorrow. Yeah. And then, so I'm painting live, and we're just going to go over a couple of fun pieces of equipment that not everybody has, not everybody needs it, but if you got an extra $10 that you want to spend, $10-20, then yeah, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 things that I'm going to show or share tonight that you may want to put in your toolbox. that being said, let's see. All right, so as with normal for the show, what are we drinking tonight? Water. It's been a busy day of walking around all over the place, just mainly in the house to upstairs, downstairs, painting upstairs and painting downstairs, doing laundry, whatever. And not only did I didn't take the dogs just for one walk today. I took them for two. So, hooray! So I'm twice as tired on that. All right. So the next part of the show would be, okay. So little housekeeping. This is the first show of September, and I'm flying solo. Nicole is on vacation, and I would hate to have 2 weeks in a row off after coming back from a dead week. So like we only had one dead week in August. So the circumstances being what they were, to have to cancel last week, and we weren't able to reschedule last week's show. So we called it a wash. And yeah, so Nicole is on her scheduled vacation, and this is us. Okay. Hey Dylan, how are you today? And yeah, so with flying solo, there's going to be just a lot of live painting and just philosophizing or giving out the opinionated opinions as is. All right. So let's end. Some of the things I'm going to share on tools and whatnot are have all been shown before on the show, but sometimes we repeat for the kids in the back who are late to class. That's all right. Okay, so let's see. The first thing I'm gonna share is this stuff. I don't normally show a lot of products on this show, mainly because but I'm gonna show some stuff off today share some stuff today that is they're legit. So like the first thing I'm gonna share is come on, lights, do our job. All right. There we go. The Josanja Magic. Figure this out. Come on, man. Didn't you read the shirt? It's here to help. So anyway, there we go. Josanja Magic Mix. So this is great. It adds a little bit of time to your drying for your paints, of course, and it dries matte, which for anybody who documents their work, this is anything that dries matte is pretty handy because then it just doesn't reflect the lights. And then there's two schools of thoughts about why people want their paints to be matte. And my common response is if you don't like that it comes out shiny, just fucking brush a coat of matte medium over it, and that'll kill your shine, or just spray it with matte medium, or use a dead flat varnish. Like I don't care the finish of the glaze or paint until I never do, because my varnish at the end dictates everybody's sheen. And some people don't varnish their pieces because they look at them as a continuous work in progress, especially for like miniature painters. And I get that if something dries shiny and you're unhappy about it, that a simple coat of matte medium is going to work wonders for you. And but the Magic Mix, it's already matte. It's already matte for you. Yeah, I love it. It's pretty much where I like to be with medium. And then let's see, we're gonna go with. Actually, I suppose I should show some works in progress beforehand. But Okay, so I'm going to show the Silicoil. There we go. And this is cool. Like I just cleaned it out. Doesn't look like it, but it's got an aluminum spring in there. This is when I just spill everything across. So it's got an aluminum spring in there, so that you, one, when you wash your brushes off in here, your brushes don't touch the bottom of the very gross paint water. And two, because it can't touch the bottom, it's pretty much a deterrent for leaving your paint brushes in there. Leaving your paint brushes in your paint waters is a pretty good way to ruin your paint brushes for the or shorten the life of them. So yeah, and I just stirred a bunch of crud in there. So, but because I use the Silicoil, this sounds counterproductive, but it's not. I use the Silicoil. You've heard myself and Nicole use this in the past because when we clean our brushes off camera, you hear that, and it's like our own personal way of being Bob Ross without being Bob Ross because of his paint bucket and his ladder. Anyway, it's I use this as the brush scrubbing jar, and then I do keep an extra jar of clean paint water that is the second wash. It sounds a little obsessive, but it helps make sure that I don't have to leave more because, yes, you are on time, David. Nicole is not here tonight because she is on vacation, so I am doing this El Solo tonight. And had I thought about this 24 hours in advance, I would have been looking for a co-host or a guest host to share this lovely space with, but I totally biffed that. So I'm doing mostly a live paint day, and I'm showing some products that like have come into my life in the past 10 years or so that have been like, wow, not quite like life changing, but game changing, and that's pretty cool. Like anything to help make the flow go better is great for me. So the Silicoil, I end up keeping a smaller bottle of or a jar of water next to it, so I can do a secondary clean on my brushes, which means I just don't have to go clean them immediately. But it helps keep the brushes living longer, and that's a good thing. Plus, the joy of this is like you're not going to mistake this for your coffee cup and take a swig out of this. And then my other water cup is definitely distinctive enough to where I'm not drinking. And this is, like I said, this isn't much. So it's like an 8-ounce cup or 8-ounce jar. The yogurt was delicious, and it's different enough to where I'm not going to try and take a swig out of that either. So moving on to with the joys of clean brushes. Let's see. So I got the Magic Mix, the Silicoil. So Magic Mix, this size Magic Mix costs about $9, and I did have to special order it online, I think through Amazon, because Blick doesn't carry this particular one. But yeah, so that's $8. I think the Silicoil is $12, and it seems like $12 for a jar. Yeah, it's $12 for a jar with a spring in it. And it does have a lid that's somewhere that has acted as an emergency palette for me, and it has some fancy printing on it. But yeah, it's for the like other folks use the ones with the silicone puck at the bottom, and I have one of those somewhere. It's just I've never gotten it to stick. I've never found the right jar for it. I have put it in jars before, but it's so far down at the bottom where I tend to want to leave my paintbrush in the cup, and that's why I have the Silicoil to avoid that. So a $12 investment to stop ruining brushes that are anywhere between $5 to $40. I'll take it. All right, and then let's see. The next product that I'm going to just talk about real quick is the joy of brush soap. And this one is the Masters brush soap. But I never bought into this stuff because I've always used, up until about 5, 6 years ago, I've always used like baby shampoo to clean my brushes with, mainly because like it's baby shampoo. It's supposed to be gentle on little kids' hair, and it's used as a cleaning solution for products too. So I've always used it for my paint brushes too, but I've never kept it in the studio because I'm always terrified of spilling exotic liquids or just being. I'm what people would classify as either careless or clumsy. So having a bigger jar of liquid to spill means I'm going to spill it. So the nice thing about this is it is just a little chunk of brush soap that, you know, you shouldn't let it get this dirty. But yeah, I've had this for 5, 6 years. Maybe longer. I can't tell you which dog I had when I first got this, but I can tell you what my wife got me for Christmas, for my birthday, and this was part of it. So yeah, the brush soap is great. All you do really, you know, you go and you clean your brush with water, run it under a sink, and then when it's wet, you give it a couple good swishes, rub around here, and then while it's loaded with soap, you reshape your brush. I'll do this one. So you got your brush, you just give it a whole bunch of swirls around in here, and then as it's coated in soap, you just shape it with your fingers. This is a filbert. It's supposed to be pointy. This is a 6-month-old brush that I've been beating up to see how good it is. And it's lost its point. But I'm going to kind of blame myself on that. So you just give it a little rotate, reforge the tip, put it off to the side. And then before you use it again, you do wash it over the sink, wash it under the sink, get the soap out. Now, when you forget to wash it, though, that's the problem. And you only forget once, maybe twice. But what will happen is you'll forget to do it. You either wash it in your cup, and you either give your brush a quick rinse with the water before you go into paint, or you go directly into your paint. Once you stab your paint with that brush, you're going to realize, oh, you forgot to wash it, because it's going to be stiff or stiffer than like when you first got it from the art store. And if you choose to power through it, you might end up getting bubbles in your paint. It might end up affecting your paint a little. If you get bubbles in it, they're probably going to pop, and it'll just kind of these weird textured circles in your paint. And if you're into that, that's fine. If you're not, you've probably ruined a few drops of paint. Yeah. But you only do that once or twice before you realize you get in the habit of checking it. Hello, Kimmy. So yeah, it only takes a couple times to screw it up. And if you rub it in your paint water first, it might take you a little longer, to realize it. But once it starts bubbling, you're going to realize, I left soap in there. The soap isn't going to affect your paint in the long run. It's just going to affect whether or not you're going to have little bubbles in it while you're painting. And I say it's not going to affect it with only knowing what it looks like 5 years, what something looks like 5 years later. It's fine. Let's see. So we got the Johansa, that, and then of course my favorite thing to talk about, because damn, I wish I had one. I think we're both on time, David. You guys are. Yeah, Kimmy, you guys are fine on time. It is Nicole who is not. And it's not that Nicole is late. It is because Nicole is on vacation and I am just running this solo. And yeah, and I'm kicking myself for not looking for a guest host or a guest tonight. I should have done that. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. All right, but moving on. Yeah. All right. Perfect opportunity to like try out, have, or not try out, but have new people on. All right. So moving on is to one my favorite thing that, like I said, I wish I had when I was in college. I'm like, why the fuck didn't Phil tell us about this? And it's the wet palette. You know, that's fine. Like I'm gonna take it serious because like I consider it a screw up. So like it's fine. You know, like you're kidding. You're kidding. It's fine. I'm not mad. So like it's like really like just a missed opportunity, right? So you know, it is what it is. Um, so the wet palette. I wish I had this in college. Now, the joys of a wet palette is that it keeps your paints longer or wetter longer. So it prevents your acrylics from drying out faster or as fast. That's great, especially, you know, fuck that, no screw up here. Hey, I appreciate it, you know, like on my other channel, I've decided, I guess when I started, I gave up on my other channel right when the pandemic hit, which seems counterintuitive to everybody else who had like YouTuber success during the pandemic, because I was making so many videos for my actual job that making more for the aspirational job just fell to the wayside, right? And that makes sense. I have another question for you if you did not ask. That's right. I have another question for you, my dear not ask artist. Oh, actually, I hate saying actually. I hate it. Actually, don't wear glasses. No, okay. Target. My wife used to work at a box company. All right, and the box company had many clients, Target being one of them, and they ended up having some Black Friday uh, shirts for Target, and like this was a Target for, or this was a shirt for Target one year for their Black Friday. Um, and I can actually tell you it was before 2017 because I've had shirts, I've had many shirts like this before we got muted. We got muted in 2017. All right, so this was a shirt for Target for Black Friday. So all their employees were wearing this, and it makes sense for Black Friday to have your employees like as easily identified as possible. Just like, yeah. And so when she got these, I was, you know, I'm still working at the elementary school in an autism program, and I saw those, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a work shirt for me. Like, yeah. And so she ended up giving me, so I ended up getting like 5, 6, 7 of these because I was like, I could have one every day of the week, and it would just look, I would look weird because I would always look like I'm wearing the same thing, but they're clean, right? But it's like you're at you're working in a special ed at a public school, perfect work shirt. And so like you know, Alicia had so many of these shirts. I took like a dozen of them to work or more. And I took them to work, and we kept them in a drawer for staff. And it was kind of like an inside joke that if you had to switch into one of these, then something bad happened to you earlier and you needed to have a change of clothes. So so like there was a couple of times where I ended up having to go into that box to change into one of these. And then one of my other coworkers that I thought the world of had to do it once, and I was like, dude. And then like, but I had also given, you know, like any of the, I got you in the streams here. Oh, thank you. And orange covering eyes. I don't know what that means. But thank you. But yeah, so but yeah, when I got these, I would wear this wherever I went in the public school or in the school. Like if I went to training, I would wear these. If I went to when I was doing summer school, I'd wear these. Like one of the security guards at a school I did summer school with, she liked that I was wearing this at work, and I had offered her one, so I gave her one the next day. Um, and yeah, and then I had lots of aides that I worked with that ended up getting them, and then one of them, um, like when we got pulled to go work into somebody else's room as a joke one day, I had worn mine, but she had worn hers because she's like, I knew you'd wear yours. Yeah, because I have 12 options for work shirts, and this is 7 of the 12. So yeah, odds were ever in my favor or odds were ever in your favor that this would happen. All right. I don't know what that means. I'm going to take that as a compliment, I hope. So, yeah, that's the story of the shirt. And then, so yeah, right now I was just looking for a shirt to paint in that I now, and pretty much like the shirts I paint in, I don't care if they get paint on them anymore. And since I'm no longer at the school, I don't care. I get paint on these. So yeah. So maybe later I'll just have a little paint job. Yeah. So there we go. So destroying my work uniform, my unofficial work uniform. Actually, is a show. I don't know, but like so I hear. I was watching a. I thoroughly enjoy cult documentaries. I wonder why. And I ended up, and one day while listening to College Humor. Oh, okay. Oh man, let's not go there yet. We'll discuss it in October or November, but I've already unfollowed 6 or 7 people on Facebook because of them deciding to can't even wait 24 freaking hours before spoiling Ahsoka. Come on, guys, like give it a week, really? So anyway, where was I on this topic? Oh yeah. So cult documentaries. I love cult documentaries. Scientology is fascinating to me, and but I found one, and every time one of the hosts would like chime in on something, she would just say, "Well, actually," or actually," and the other one would say, "It's essentially this," and that's how they would break down their research every time and multiple times throughout the episode, and like that repetitive language just really got tiring to me. And I know that sounds very hypocritical because I do have my own repetitive language, but like that's all I would hear is that actually or essentially it's this. I'm like, come on, figure out something else to boil down your analysis. And yeah, and then when you work with 9-year-old kids and they would just want to say, actually, yeah, no. All right, so back to the wet palette. Acrylics, right? Don't put oils in this. Yeah, it's kind of it's a low level stasis chamber for your acrylic paints. Some paints work better in a wet palette than others. Examples. Unnamed model paints. Depending on the manufacturer, they will work okay in your wet palette. But if you're manufacturer, if your manufacturer has a reputation for separating in the bottles and having to shake like hell, it's going to separate in your palate too. It might take a little while longer, but a day or two later, you might open this up and you're going to be like, well, it looks like this. Yes, because it's separated just like it would in the bottle. Okay. Anything that's really runny, like the paints that I want to mix tonight, there's no way I would put them in the wet palette, because I'm going to put them in there, and it's going to, some of that water-loving medium that's in there is going to just grab onto all the other water in there and go everywhere. Go forth and be fruitful. That's what it's going to be, and it's going to screw up everything else. So in an ideal world, your best paint to put in there, your heavy body acrylics, because these don't separate in the tubes, so they won't separate down in the wet palette. But is it exclusively to this? No. But this is great. This is what I used in college, and dang, man, like I said, this would have made me a faster painter in college. It would have made me a faster painter years ago. And I use my acrylic gouaches in there too. Liquitex makes an amazing acrylic wash. I don't like regular gouache because you can reactivate it. But the acrylic, because there's a binder in there, once it's down, and it doesn't go anywhere, which is great. Reactivation is not a turn on to me, but if it does, you work with it. All right. So the joy of the wet palette is it is a watertight container. Comes with the sponge. Various manufacturers give you a various different absorbent material to put in there. I've had one where they gave you a sheet of watercolor paper. What's the best way to use crappy paintbrushes if it's all you got last minute to use for tiny details? Get yourself a toothpick. So like, that's a great question. I do have a couple answers for you. Let me do my wet palette sermon one more time, and we'll talk about that, because that's a beautiful question to answer tonight. All right, so the wet palette, absorbent material, and you can make these yourself. And I have one in the basement that is homemade. It is a Ferrero Rocher plastic box. It has sponges all lined in it, and then, yeah, I've done that better. Yeah. So yeah, and so you dunk your water in there. Just make sure, like, your water level can't go higher than your absorbent material, right? Because the next step is more, yeah. So I'm dumping water in it and getting it very high up there, and then I'm using Master's proprietary paper to put after I go there. All right. So I've been dumping water in there carelessly, and once it fills all the way, I'm just going to lay their proprietary paper on top, lay it flat, and now it's good to go. If you don't have the proprietary paper, parchment paper works just as well. It's a little off, but it's fine. A roll of parchment paper will get you way more sheets than what their proprietary paper is worth. I'm using it mainly because it came with the palette. Downstairs, I use parchment paper. It's fine. And the reason I'm showing this one more time tonight is because I plan on mixing up some paints and going to town with it. And that's the really nice advantage to this is that when you choose your paints and you have your paints that aren't going to betray you over the course of 2 days, you can mix up custom paints in here so that you bang out your painting session, you have a good time, and then if you missed a spot or have a mistake that you need to fix, you're like, oh no, I had a custom color. Well, here it is, still in save mode, and that's goddamn. That's a lifesaver. All right. What did you ask? You asked about what's the best way to use crappy paintbrushes if it's all you got last minute for tiny details. Okay. I am grabbing some tiny brushes in an array of them. And I'm going to say there might not be a crappy brush. Well, I would love to say there's no such thing as a crappy brush. But we all know that's bullshit. But I'm going to grab some brushes that have turned crappy, and then it's like, well, what can you do? And I think the rest of them are over there. Yeah. Actually, this is a shining example. Let me see if I have the other one in the cup. All right. I do. I think this is perfect. All right. Great. I had got some crappy brushes or lower quality brushes when I was going to be doing some teaching earlier this year. I've cut them before to try and fix them, and that, oh my gosh, such a hassle. It is, and that's probably one of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. But actually, I have one of the first episodes we did, I did cover the idea of how to, I assume my set of $7 brushes from Amazon is crappy. You don't have to assume that. I've gotten some really crappy or some really cheap sets just to try them out. And like if you take care of them, they can last you a bit. And your $8 cake of soap, which was more than your $8 brushes, will help push those longer. Now, let's see. We'll talk about how to, what can you do? All right, so first we'll talk about paint management in your brushes. And I have a big brush here just to use as a visual model. When you're grabbing paint for your paintbrush, try to keep your paint from only going in the top half or the end half of your bristles, right? Don't try to avoid paint going from here down, right? So like you get paint here, once the pigment dries here, that ends up helping spread out your bristles. And we're just gonna apologize to my very fancy sable brush that I was spreading it out like that. But paint management, yeah. So one of the humps I have for painting is the idea of once I put paint on my brush, not to wipe it off until I get it onto my surface. And that's great for slapping on a base coat. But once you start getting into fine detail work or detailing it, wiping off an excess of it on a paper towel, it looks like you're wasting half of it, and you are half your paint, and you are. But what you're doing is you're preserving the other half of the paint, your time, and your brush. So that's important to me. So it's like I might be wasting paint, but I'm saving time. Okay, so don't do that. When you wash your brushes, after you wash them, here's what most people. Here's the next common thing that'll happen for people to like shorten the life of their brushes. People will store your paint freshly washed, still probably particulates in there, and they store it upright. So all those particulates have a chance to go down here, dry, and spread out the bristles. Okay, cool. So yeah. So what can you do? Well, there are people that store their paintbrushes this way or upside down. Item. Um, actually, no, actually, so I have made myself a paintbrush rack to store them sideways like a samurai sword, so that they're stacked. If you'll give me a minute, I'll go get my rack, and right back. Okay. All right. Thanks for holding on. Wine bottle rack. Yes. So this is what I made years ago. It's got to be 6 years old. And this was like the prototype one I made, and I have refined it a little, but since this one works, I've never felt the urge to cut out another one. So I made this on the laser cutter at the Makerspace, and you can see here. And I thought about like having these. I wasn't going to make them for mass production, but I was thinking of later this year I was going to make a Patreon page and offer these up to patrons. So that's a possibility. And it holds so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slots. I've been almost never put something down here or up on this. I wouldn't put many things up here, maybe short brushes or thick fatty brushes. Fatty. That's what's on my mind. So yeah, something like that there. Make that your first tier. What, just to have available for y'all? My first tier is a tutorial and a pair of earrings. So that's okay. So I've been thinking of having 3 tiers. The here's you $1 tier, a $5 tier, and a $10 tier. The dollar tier would be like the reward would for the $10 first tier. Really? Like there are the 2 people I support on Patreon. One gets $2 from me and one gets 3. So I give $5 out a month. I made 3-tier system too. I did 5, 19, and 25. Holy crap. We'll talk later. I mean, like, serious. I'm with you. But I was thinking like a really low price that people are like, okay, here. Like, I like Rick's shit on Instagram. I like his stuff on YouTube. Here's you $1 every month. And in return, besides whatever digital incentives I had, I will probably send every patron gets a postcard at the end of the year. You know, like you get a hand-signed print, essentially, right? But the $5 tiers, so here's what I was thinking, and we don't have to discuss prices, but like the low tier, here's you a card, you get to see everything that happens live on Patreon, because I was going to do, like, they stopped quite a while back, but yeah. So like so the rewards would be like, here's you a card, okay, thanks for the $1, okay, and then the next tier would be and then like I would have a live like Q&A, something like this on Patreon once a month, and everybody's invited. And then the next level tier would be like, well, I will like show how some of the sausage is made in terms of like paints I use or identifying the paints and whatnot. And then Like the high level tier is here's the teacher's ed about how things are painted, etc. Um, okay. But yeah. So, but having shit like this available, just be like, if you'd like to order above and beyond your dollar, cool. It's like I can't see more than selling like 5 or 10 of these a year. But maybe. I don't know. But yeah. So let's see, this base is about twice the size of a business card. And I can't say I've never knocked it down. I've rarely knocked it over. But I feel I should also have a bigger version because like all my paintbrushes are pretty much for short-handled stuff. But like the bigger brushes need love too, right? We all love to give love to the bigger things. And then this is also really handy because when I decide to go downstairs and paint while we're watching a movie or something, I just load up 4 or 5 of these and just take it downstairs. That'd be epic. I'd support you in exchange for the same and if I had access to getting them. There you go. And you do a lot more craft fairs and stuff than I do, don't you? Like, maybe I'll hook you up with some of these and take them to your thing. We'll work out a deal later. How's that? We'll work out something later. But yeah, all right. Meanwhile, back to the original question. All right, so if you have a crappy brush, put this away. Now this is all right, before we go back, this is a low Cornell brush. It looks brand new. This brush is 20 years old. I don't use it as often as I used to. Actually, no. This brush was my grandfather's that I picked out for him because he needed a nice brush so he could lay out stuff. So I very rarely use this one. I have 2 similar. The other one is back there, I think. Anyway, 20-year-old brush. All right. Anyway, okay, so will this work? Without my camera falling over. All right. Actually, Kimmy, this is a texture mat that I made on the laser cutter too, which if you dry brush and stuff, this is pretty cool. And it was a lot easier to manufacture than other people's texture mats that they sell because it might take 50% more material, but it takes way less time to make this than it does all these fancy laser engraved ones because it's cut out on the laser, but the material's flipped over. Yeah, so I have 2 types of material for this, which is the masonite. So part of it is smooth like this, and then the other part is cut out, so you have the rough section, and then you prime it, and so you have a nice, even textured area that you can see like how your washes are going, how your dry brush is going, and it's a pretty decent work surface. So I cut my logo out for this, and you can clearly see how well it worked. All right, now back to the original thread. All right, so we're going to look at some brushes that I have done a fine job of chewing up over time. And let's see, I'm looking at one monitor to see how the camera's doing. All right, so this one's splayed out. This used to be nice and fine. Actually, this is a one from Princeton that, it's a liner brush, and it is splayed out because I have let that happen. So what can you do? A lot of miniature painters, they do this when they want their brush to be really pointy after it's been fucked up. And then there you go. It's beautiful. And I freaking hate doing that. But to get it nice and moist, your tongue brings it to a point, and then it's good to go for a little bit. And yep. But there are some some of my paints come from Europe, and some of those manufacturers do not care if they put lead in their paint, so no longer a brush licker. Exactly. So yeah, as much as I do not care for Stuart Hustle and Stuart Simple and their the Culture Hustle, Black 2.0 remedied me of ever licking my brush again, because that shit was awful. Just absolutely awful. All right, so what can you do? I'm going to grab this one and just, all right, this is, what was this? This was Craftsmart. I assume this was from Michaels. And I just said that. I know you did. I beat you to it. So this one is gross. I've let paint dry on it. And we can rehab it. I'm not set up for that tonight, but I'll tell you how to do it. I'll try and set up a video in a week or two on my other channel, how to rehab your paintbrushes. But if you've got it to this point with paint and stuff, we're going to rehab it. You'll probably be cutting it too. Before we go on, do you want to know how to use a crappy brush fresh from the pack, or after it's taken some wear and tear? Because there are different approaches. So, while we're delay, but let's say you got a brush right out of the pack and you realize, oh, it's kind of crappy. Giving it a yes, like, oh my God, it's the last one in the house, and it came from the craft kit. A craft kit 20 miles away from. Okay, so if you want to rehab a brush, you can do it. I'm trying to think of the steps. All right. You'll need about 2 hours. So what I would do is I would take your brush and I would coat. I'm assuming you fucked it up, right? So if it's fucked up like this one is, you would take some Dawn and massage it in there and reshape it to what you wish it would look like, while you're letting that dry, and let it dry for about 2 hours. And then came from Walmart Craft Kit. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to rehab this, and it might work for that too. So you're going to try and reform your brush or your bristle brushes, and you'll massage that in, and you'll create the shape you need it to be. Then you're going to boil some water in a kettle or whatnot, and use that's downstairs. I keep a Pyrex glass measuring cup just for this, and so I put boiling water in the cup, then I put some white vinegar in there, and then I will swirl my fucked up brush that was coated in Dawn in there, and to break up all the dirt and crap, and then I will wash it off, put it in some brush soap, and and reshape it with the brush soap, and then save it for a couple hours, and hopefully, there you go. Hopefully that will reshape your brush to a standard. If not, and this is the one where, like, I would be taking my sharpest X-Acto knife, and let's see, I'm going to try and do this on camera. I gotta do it backwards. I would take my sharpest knife at the very bottom of the ferrule, and I would slowly rotate it along the length of my brush or my blade. You're going to feel slowly, you're going to feel the bristles go against the blade. You may not cut them all at one time. I'd go slow. You can always cut off more. It's hard to put them back. And yeah, you can saw it a little. You can do whatever, but I would try. And the weird thing for me is doing this is fine. It's legit. It just feels weird to have that smaller bristle, that smaller amount of bristles on a bigger handle. It's that. I said what I said and I meant it. So you will be essentially reshaping your brush and getting rid of as many stragglers as possible. You always cut from the bottom. Don't go from the top and be like, I'm gonna do this. You're gonna ask for a palm tree. But yeah, you can see like I had it all splayed out and it's now less splayed. Give it a little water, give it a little love. Now we're just going to put my money where my mouth is and grab a. I should have. Exactly. All right. So I wish I had done a pre-drop of liquid beforehand, just to be like, oh yeah, this is what it would look like. I'm just grabbing whatever random color. It's a brown. So let's see. Yeah, there you go. And keep in mind, this was a synthetic brush that I had let soak up a ton of paint. So maybe vinegar would have been a great solution. But there you go. Now, it was funny. I saw something online today that I was like, that's hilarious. Because like a model painter that I watch, he was pointing out a joke he had made years ago, and it stuck. It's funny when you can make a joke and it just go, right? Like go and go. And he had made this joke about a lead hair, and then some other YouTuber like saw that joke, didn't realize it was a joke, and perpetuated it as a reality. And I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. So if your brush has a great point, actually I just went on a tangent. Ignore that. All right. So yeah, if your brush has a fine point on it, this one's been soaked up and yeah, like it's a liner brush. I love it. Works great. Did I cover your question, or did I go all the way around except where you needed to go? Oh. Yeah. Okay. And then like, here's the other fun part. Like, what can you do with brushes once they're jacked up? So like, I know we covered this in an earlier episode, like one of the first month or two. I don't mind repeating this kind of information. So when your brushes are fucked up, that's not the end of the brush. Actually, this was a brush I bought on a Kickstarter, or from a Kickstarter. Not because it takes a minute for you to get there, get my replies. It's all right. Hell, I thought I was going to have to cancel because of the thunderstorms. So, like, apparently they decided to sprinkle on me and the dog, and then it went away. Yeah, I actually ended up getting like some of the Kolinsky brushes from a YouTuber to support his Kickstarter, because I appreciated a lot of the information is YouTube, channel provided, but I didn't want to support them on Kickstarter, but I wanted to say thank you for the information. So I decided I would back his Kickstarter. I was like, okay, I have appreciation in my heart, but I don't want to be stuck in doing Patreon, and so what can you do? So I supported this his Kolinsky brush Kickstarter, and Kolinsky is supposed to be like, that's the name for when you want like high quality fine tip brushes for modeling stuff, modeling, toy painting, etc. Little tiny details. But these brushes kind of stunk. Like they just weren't that great. Every time, like the bigger of the Kolinskys that I had, after dunking it in my water cup once, the tip started to hook. And you can rehab the hooked tip the same way. Kolinsky, I'm not going to tell you this brand because I still appreciate his YouTube channel. I'm not going to besmirch him here. I'm purposely also covering up his name so that you can't go back and scrub to find it. But I just won't go back and buy that brush again, right? But on the other hand, or in that same vein, Winsor and Newton, they make an amazing Kolinsky brush. And I'm happy to tell everybody about it because this brush is 6 years old. Still got a pretty good tip. It's what I consider one of my Excalibur brushes, and where I only break it out when I have to do fine detail work. But because here's going to be a kicker, and we'll. It's like poetry. All right. Kolinsky. That's the name. It's right there. Okay. Something like Magic Mix, airbrush extender by Golden, or a paint retarder. I would totally make sure I add a little bit of this or paint retarder. I guess this is one. I know it is. It's a retarder. I would add a little bit of retarder to my paints. I will add, because I want that to not dry up anywhere in my brush. So you add a retarder to give you a better fighting chance. There you go. So yeah, I use that especially when I go into smaller brushes. And the downside is it turns your paints more transparent. So that means there's quite a possibility that you will not get a one and done dab or stroke on there. So you may have to do it more than once, but you're going to preserve your paintbrush better, and that's totally worth it. Like this is I want to say it's a $24 brush, and it's seen a lot of work. So, you make the investment of an expensive brush. I mean, hell, even your cheap brushes, you want them to keep their form and shape. So you give it whatever push you can to make sure it's as reliable for you as long as possible. Yeah, but like I said, like this YouTuber's Kolinsky brushes, I'm like, man, they all have done, like, they've frayed on me, they've spread out, they've hooked, and it's like, it's a little disappointing, but I'm like, man, the information I got from your YouTube channel, especially with dealing with like topics and stuff, like, kind of worth the throwaway, but not. But yeah, anything really tiny, like, what is this? This is a 18-0, according to Princeton. And everybody's numbering system is different. So if you say this is a 00, this could be a 00, this could be a 00. But yeah. Now, let's say your brush is messed up and you don't know what to do with it. Well, from its original purpose, you can move on. And it can evolve. Once a brush like this, like I've had a number 4 of there, and it's twice as big. Imagine that. And once it lost its point and it got beaten up enough, I ended up turning it into a basing brush because it no longer had. That's some sucky ducky stuff. Yeah, it is. No, don't use that. We use the retarding term for the medium, and we're going to be positive that way. But yeah, so yeah, like I let my brushes evolve from like the finest thing to once they start splaying out, it's like, what else can I paint with it? Once they start getting kind of ratty like this, this is perfect for doing like weathering effects and stuff, because I'm going to be stabbing a lot to get a weathered effect. This is perfect. I have a bunch of brushes that are just like, yeah, you're beaten up, so you're going to be weathered. You're weathering. You're going to be like big space dry brushing, all kinds of stuff. Like, I mean, I have some specialty dry brushes that they look great, and yeah, specialty. But I've actually brought out a pair of pliers too, because once your brush gets all rattied up, you mean like when we use texture bases, right? Like, or texture paints and stuff. God damn, I would never, ever, ever let my Winsor Newton Excalibur would not ever freaking touch a texture paint, right? Like, never, ever, because that's going to screw it up fast, right? I'm going to use my hands as a visual model. All right, but let's say, yeah, your brush is on the way out. You could use it to smush texture pastes around. I do. We all do, right? And that's fine. Like, you test out what the shape's going to look like, and you go from there. But one of the things that I've done in the past that I do like is I've learning the church of the fan brush. This one's wet. But I freaking love using a fan brush, and it's not just for Bob Ross and his pine trees. But yeah, like if you have a junky brush and you use like polymer clays that can get smoothed out with alcohol, your junky brush is a great alcohol smoothing tool. Your junky brush is great for smushing around clay. It's great for texturing clay, or epoxy sculpt, yeah, that's fine. Like, once you realize it's lost its shape, turn it into whatever, right? Even if this is so far gone and you just have a stick, well, you now have a stick, right? And like a lot of my toys, I will put, as I'm trying to grab one, I put my toys on sticks so I can use them as paint handles. So what's better paint handle than the handle of a paintbrush? Perfect. And then the other thing I wanted to I'll show about what we do when we have our fucked up brushes, because we go back to the church of the fan brush, is you can make your own fan brushes by manipulating, gosh, I hope this works right now, the ferrule, and you can start pinching it gently, and you can spread out your fan brush, or spread out your brush and make your own fan brush, or something that's very purposeful like that. So now it's very much meant to be stippling. I don't know if I can undo that, and I'm not going to worry about it. This was one of my Amazon cheapo brush sets, or brush sets. So I think I got this. I think I got like 15 brushes for $25, so that I could have it when I went to Designer Con. So I could have like some emergency brushes in case I had to touch up something right then and there. I put my resin stick, a new fan brush. Yeah, I'm trying to find the one that I did make in my collection, and I'm going to I'm gravitating towards one that I know is not a fan brush, that is not a homemade one. But yeah, so like I love the fan brush. I have a few various sizes of it, and I know it's built. The ferrule is built differently, but yeah, I love it. Like I use it. I use it for all kinds of shit. Like there's some cool special effects you can do with it, and there's just like cool effects in general. And yeah, and I'm using round nose pliers. I don't know if that really makes a difference or not, but it's what I have. Yeah. The joyous coincidence is that like all the tools up here come from my dad's own hobby shop. So, you know, they didn't get as much love or use from my dad's shop because he was a grade A procrastinator. So now they just see full-time use in my studio. Right on, right? All right. So then, gosh, again, I wish I'd thought about showing this beforehand, but I got a dab of paint on the brush, or I guess still got a dab of paint out. Yeah, so now I have a cool stippling brush. And I might actually paint on my King Corpse because I really like how that works. And once you get to this junky phase, you know, if you want to preserve it, by all means preserve it, but it's like, yeah. Like I just rinsed in my Silicoil. The Silicoil is dirty as hell. And I probably will make sure that's preserved. And like something like this, I think I will probably, oh, excuse me, it's a liner brush. I have to lick it in order to make that be effective. I should probably just cut it and make something out of it. But yeah, Face Purple Crime Blue Fan Brush. Yeah, so Jesus, I got to spend an hour and a half about talking about other stuff or about like just studio hacks in general. That's cool. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I'm not calling it quits yet, but well, you guys came in for information and visual sensation, right? So let's do this. I would like to share. So we do color of the month. Last month's color was lime. I don't believe we're going to have one for this month. So I would like to share what I did for color of the month for August. And I would hope everybody watching is subscribed to my other YouTube channel. But if you're not, sad. But yeah, so color of the month was lime. And on another on Boylai Hobby Time, that's one of the places the channels I support on YouTube or on Patreon. The dude has a monthly Mystic Mountain Purple. Put a pin in that. We'll talk about that after this. So Boylai Hobby Time has a monthly art challenge for its patrons. And this month, the theme for dioramas was space stations, or last month's theme was space stations. And so I made, dun dun dun, a little cut view of a space station out of a cargo container from Martian Toys. And I ended up having like multiple levels. So you could be like, all right, so you get to see like the inner workings of the space station, couple floors of it, and the escape room or escape level. And so I have a fun story about this. I don't know if I articulated it well enough on my on the YouTube video for this, but this was part of that hobby challenge, part of the color of the month, and it is going to New York Comic Con to be in Stormy Vault's show. So I will have a QR code to the YouTube channel for this piece linked there. So hopefully I can get New York Comic Con views Who knows? But it'll be available for sale then. Yeah, and it's cool. Like this. There we go. Yeah, Martian Toys made these containers a while ago. And this is half of one because I cut it in half to make. Thank you, David. I cut it in half for my show with them, and made the show a diorama of the show for the show. And yeah, so here's the funny part about this piece. All right, so half of it's cut on the laser cutter, half, and the other half is like shit that I had around the studio. So of course the cargo container itself, like this is the rocket is from Kid Robot and one of their dunnies. This is a terrain piece I had. This is also a terrain piece I had, but these little squares come from toy bodies. I made the inner workings all out of like airplane model parts and other resin kits. But we can all see this thing right here, right? Like the alien tail. That's the hidden guest in this diorama to tell a story. And so, like you get to look at this. If you look at it long enough, you're going to find that and be like, "Oh, those people are screwed." Well, at this point in time in the story, they've already been severely screwed. But so in the story for that diorama, the security officer freaking saw the science team come in with the egg. He knew exactly what they were bringing on board, and he freaks out. He tells the commander of the station, like, that has to go. That must be off board. And they said, and he was told, it's coming home with us, whether you like it or not. So the security officer did the only thing that any rational human being on the planet or in the universe would do. He left. He put on his space station, or he put on his spacesuit, went outside to go put a sign on the ship that said cursed or whatever. It's the only thing I haven't put on there. And then he was going to get out of there. The design, that's it. Just, I'm out. Now, some would say that sounds pretty selfish, and you're right. But in this space station, in this world, in this world of regulation, there's one life ship or one space escape pod or life ship for every crew member. Even though each life pod could support 12 people, there's 7 on board because there's 7 people. So he's not taking somebody else's thing to get out of there. He's just getting out. Unfortunately for this dude, while he's hanging up his sign, he loses grip of his hold on the space station, and now he's just adrift in space. Okay, that's fun, right? And then he comes to a new planet. He's adrift at space, and he's found a new little reality. So size matters. So he's coming crashing down. This piece was for a charity show in October, and I had no clue what I was going to do until I started making that one. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. So I did shoot a video of this too. I have not finished it yet. But I was like, yeah, we're just going to turn this into a follow-up scene from that. And it'll be really cool. And if somebody gets both, great. If not, they got YouTube to look at it. It's cool. So yeah, I had a little tiny T-Rex with a lot of mushrooms. And it's like, is that a little tiny T-Rex? Or are those really big mushrooms? Or how far is that dude from falling down onto the new land? these are the questions we have to ask. And these are the questions I won't answer until, yeah. So I have a lot of adventures planned for this dude because he's just going to be like an accidental, accidental tourist for the rest of his life. And he's just going to stumble onto a lot of different worlds and stuff. So, yeah, this is fun. And it's really freaking blacklight. Really freaking blacklight. And then, and it seems like everything I've got right now is going for a show, and that's fine. That's cool. So then, in a couple of weeks in El Paso, if I really wanted to hustle, I'd be down there. I'd be in El Paso for the show. But you know, my pieces I have of yours have the coolest shelf. No, that's cool. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, so Ghost Fox Toys is hosting a fast food themed show, and I got invited to be in there. And a lot of them are doing their own sculpts and stuff. And I'm not a sculptor. I had 2 ideas, and apparently those toys have disappeared. So third time's a charm, right? So I took this toy from 3A, which I think 3A is a fantastic toy producer, and I made my own Hamburglar out of it. It's not blacklight reactive. There's still a piece that is drawing down in the basement, but yeah, I made the Hamburglar out of a Bomba Bass. And since the Bomba Bass is all like a robot anyway, I was like, well, he's going to be a robot. He's going to be corroded because it looks more like a biscuit sandwich than a hamburger. That's all right. But yeah, so to fall in line with the robotic theme of 3A, and 3A does a really cool job with their weathering on a mass production level. It's really nice. So I was like, I'm going to keep the 3A grungy vibe. And while I was doing the yellow, I kept adding in, just to make it not a flat yellow, I kept like adding extra values and layers to it. And I was futzing around with a non-metallic metal look to give it that like fake chrome feel. If you see it, great. If you don't, okay. But the yellow is more interesting than just straight yellow. And that's pretty much the whole point, the big point of it. So yeah, it's turned out pretty cool. This is now my Facebook profile picture right now, just like that. And that's, yeah, fun showpiece. And then last time we were here, didn't have, I have the Dragon Boy. I'm turning it into a jungle terrain. And so the colors have all been laid out. Eventually it'll have a water effect poured in here, resin. So right now it's like this is all base coated. It's going to get a bunch of details painted in with lighter colors. And yeah, and one of my pups will be floating in the sea or floating in the water effect like that little girl's shoe in My Neighbor Totoro, because My Neighbor Totoro has a huge dark undertone, if you believe that. So I'm like, why not? We'll propagate that. All right. And then what we were going to do? Oh, yeah. Paint effects. So, thank you. Yeah. So I like painting with, so I like using Liquitex acrylic inks in my airbrush. One of the hang-ups to it, or problems, is that it's very thin because it comes out like ink, and with the wrong air pressure, you're just going to shoot it all over the place and it'll just spider web. So the solution to that, have you not spoken or watched the cool doc on that? The Dark of It's impressive. No. Oh, before we go here, I said we'll put a pin in it, and you said, what'd you say? Something about purple, Misty Mountain purple. So, yeah, there's the pin. So, while doing YouTube videos, I don't want to really just advertise for free on like the paints I use, and I very much try to not have the paint bottles in my camera shot. Whatever reason, I don't know. It's weird. But I was thinking like it would be funny to make new labels. Misty Mountain Purple. Thank you. Yeah, so I thought it would be funny to make new labels just to be on camera, so I could be. It was a Crayola color. Nice. So it was Laser Lemon, and it's amazing under a black light. But yeah, so I was thinking to be funny to make fake labels for my paints so that I don't have to be so I can be a little more careless about having them on camera. So more work to be careless. And so like one of the browns I used on that dude, I was like, well, that's going to be hamburger patty brown or hamburger patty shadow and shit like that. So I'm very much now like on the idea that I want to start making up really stupid names for my paint colors that are actually other people's paint colors, but I don't feel like advertising for them. And also that a lot of the manufacturers of the model colors that I do use, they like to have their own proprietary names so they can try and trademark or copyright that shit. Oh, nice. So yeah, so I'm like, I think I'm going to make like my own label brand just to put over to not be free advertising for other people. But on the flip side, on Patreon, I'll be happy to tell people what I'm using. I don't know. It just feels right. All right, so one of the last things I want to do tonight is, let's see, I just threw one around. A while ago, I cut out a shit ton of little rectangles with the laser cutter for a project that I'm not doing. So earlier this week, I had turned them into frog lover potion, etc. So that's awesome. So I made a bunch of rectangles that I'm not using. So I slathered them with one of the texture pastes that I almost never use. Turns out this would have been a great texture if I had made McNuggets for the Ghost Fox Toys show. But since it's got texture on it, it's got highs and lows, and I'm like, well, we're gonna make some freaking paint with it. So I thought I bought some Prussian blue, so I'm gonna make a glaze Prussian blue. So the standard operating procedure when I use, that's turquoise deep. All right, well, apparently I didn't buy Prussian blue. All right, so the premise behind using inks in the airbrush is because they're really pigmented. They're really pigmented. They come out really vibrant, but they're fragile as all hell. And because it's really watery, the pressure of the airbrush has a possibility, very good one, of making it spider leg all over the place or spray out all over the place. So to fix that, I mix a 1-to-1 ratio of matte medium and ink, and the matte medium is thinned out enough by the ink, or the ink is thickened up by the matte. The matte medium is thinned down by the ink, so it shoots through the airbrush just fine. And you get a lot of transparency with it, so you're able to layer up your paints to create values really fast and fairly pretty. So that's the big plan with the big old glass bottle droppers. And really, like, a couple of the model companies make similar products, but they're really expensive. Like and I won't touch them. Like Games Workshop makes one that, yeah, it's a really nice glaze where the colors are nice. It's a glaze that'll go through the airbrush just fine. But for I want to say an 18 milliliter bottle, they want $9 for it. Well, for less than $9, I can get a 30 millimeter. So that's almost twice as much liquid for the same cost. And then I can use whatever medium to beef it up, to give it a little durability and give it some strength to go through the airbrush. Now, the durability is the other part. When airbrushing with inks, they're fragile on a surface. Like, you could look at it and it'll rub off. But you give it an acrylic medium to go with it, and it's great. So give it a good shake. I'm just going to put a drop on my palette lid. The other nice thing about so I put a drop here, right there, and I'm just going to slather it on, and that's pretty. Like you can see, it's highly concentrated. I'm going to spread it out as far as I can, and yeah, that's nice. And now my paint water is muddy blue-green. But we're going to take this. I'm going to give it 1. We're going to be very scientific tonight. 2, 3. Just going to do 10 here. And it looks about that high, so I'm just going to double it. And it's like, put your money where your mouth is, man. Which one do you want to use? So like matte medium, magic mix, or the retarder. All right, so I don't want to deal with the glossiness. The retarder is going to be glossy. And they're about the same cost per milliliter. The magic mix, the retarder, and the matte medium. They're all about the same. They're going to have a little bit of different properties to it. If I were brushing this new mix on now, I would go with matte medium and just like a drop of Molument solution. But I'm going to use the magic mix. I'm going to fill it up to here. Really scientific. And boom, done. All right. So cost effective wise, like this is like Games Workshop. I'm going to rag on them for a minute because I hate their business model. So yeah, Games Workshop, $9 for 18 milliliters. But this is 3 times as much as you would need to make. You would get 3 batches with this and a little bit at the end this, so you would need a 1-to-1 ratio of this, and it would cost you about $2. So a little bit of time to mix, but you know, if you want 10 colors, like this all of a sudden becomes a hell of a deal. And then you don't have to go back and support a company that has really shitty business practices. And that's ultimately my evil plan, is to foil other people's shitty business practices. All right, so now I've got my new ink wash glaze paint going on there. I put 2 drops out there. I grabbed, and look at that. I said we rehabbed it, right? After a little bit of abuse, it went back to that. So it's a little thinner, which of course, no shit. I added 100% clear medium to it. But you can see like it's going in the crevices where it wants to go. It's darkening those. It's not staying on the surface. So it is creating values throughout. And it works out pretty okay. And I've totally done this off camera. Oops. All right. So yeah. There's my sample pieces of straight up ink. And once this dries, you're going to see like different values throughout. You're going to see you're going to see the darkest part will be whatever this is, just in the recesses. And then it's going to be a little lighter on the upper part. So it creates extra steps in painting without any work, really. And now it's going to be super durable. And it's a really pretty color. So there we go. So I hope you found this night informative and enlightening. And let's see. Oh no, I put Excalibur. Oh, there it is. And then, while we're waiting for that to dry, actually I'm going to put this on the fan. Under the fan. And then we'll give a little bit of okay, I'm going to show off the two Kalinskis I do have from Winsor Newton that are in the wild. So they're being actively used. So this is the number 2. This is the number 1. The number 1 is 10 years old or longer. I remember buying this as soon as I got the house. So it is 13 years old. Yeah. So this is a 13-year-old brush. It has lost some of its point. You can see that. But it's 13 years old. And I wasn't always using brush soap with this. So that's not bad. And then to stay in perspective, here's a number 3 that I just find, like, you guys saw me take it out of its tube. So this is what brand new looks like, and that's what 6 years looks like. Not too shabby, right? But on the flip side, let's see, I bought a number 4 from Princeton. Like I said, the numbers really don't matter between, but I bought a number 4 from Princeton that is about this size, and I've been beating the hell out of it, or trying to, and but I've been wanting to like restore the tip as much as possible, so I can see like how good can I get eyes done on the tiniest things, or how tiny can I get with this big old honking brush. And I suppose I left it downstairs because I can't find it in the normal 3 spots that I keep brushes in. So it must be downstairs. But there we go. All right. Well, this is going to conclude my broadcast for the night. I very much thank everybody for tuning in. I hope I've answered all your questions. I appreciate the questions more than you know. I appreciate sharing the information because I'm chock full of it and opinions, and I'm happy to share. Sometimes for free. But yeah, so and this dude. We'll go on to this. So I have a couple of these that I bought that are actually angled for reach around areas. But like once your brush gets to a shitty spot, there's nothing that says you can't make your own. And it may not be as good, but what the hell, you might as well try, right? And if it doesn't work, fine. So yeah, all right. With that being said, Rick Strohmeyer, right there. Rick Stroh at everything. Threads, YouTube, Instagram.com, not on Twitter. I think I got banned there today. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Have a great week. Yeah, awesome. Good night, everybody.